Welcome to Mr. America, the Bearded Truth, covering political and social issues one liberty at a time, with entertaining insights of current events and important discussions on topics that affect us all, shining the torch of liberty and brightening the future by bringing libertarianism into our everyday life. And now, your host, the friendly neighborhood libertarian, Jason Lyon, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth on Muddied Waters Media.
Hello everybody, welcome in. So glad you're here, so glad you could be a part of today's show. That's right, we're still here, new time slot, Fridays 2 p.m. Eastern, that's 2 p.m. Freedom Time. And of course, I'm your host, Jason Lyon, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. I want to thank you guys all for being a part of today's show, for hopping in, checking out the live stream, or if you're checking us on the podcast later, I appreciate it nonetheless. But of course, this is a Muddy Waters Media production, which means that you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Float, and Odyssey live. And if not, on your favorite podcast app, where I would just encourage you and support you if you give us those 5-star reviews, if you like us, share us out, comment on all the platforms you're checking us out on, whatever you're doing, wherever you're seeing us, however you are getting this muddied content, give us some love, show us some love, and we appreciate y'all very much for that. Before we start off today's conversation, which I do have the one and only Mr. Travis Bull Johnson, we're gonna be talking about small businesses, the hurdles that are already enacted, already in the way of us being able to see small businesses be able to thrive and survive, and to just get into the market, let alone as we look at the economic situation of our future being in questionable states, a lot of things teetering within the economy. This is a good time to have this conversation of how we can start working together, see some changes, and activate ourselves. But before we get into today's conversation, which I hope you're excited for just as much as I am, we gotta give some love. So first of all, big love and appreciate the hell out of you guys for being here and joining us. Thank you to Matt and Spike for giving me a platform to come out here to talk with my guests about my opinions, my views, and my stances on things, and of course theirs as well. And of course, thank you to KelseyLionDesigns.com. If you guys are a candidate, if you're a small business owner looking to pick up and take off with your businesses, branding, logos, business cards, publications, these are all ways that you can really set yourself apart. And KelseyLionDesigns.com, you go there, go and put in the code Mr. Bearded Truth or Muddied Waters. She's going to give you 10% off, but she is becoming quickly nationally recognized as being phenomenal, and not just graphic design, but so much more. If you guys are heading over to Reno, you guys will see her as she's going to be giving a couple courses there. So make sure you guys are getting over there to KelseyLionDesigns.com for all of your needs, whether it's websites, business cards, logos, rebranding, branding for the first time, whatever it is. Get over there to KelseyLionDesigns.com. Looking to get some light reading in? Well, head on over to theroyalgreen.com, where you're going to be able to find Jack Casey. He wrote some books. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I'm not going to say. Are these good books? Are they bad books? I'm not going to say. But I will say that you can head on over to theroyalgreen.com, as he has been transitioning through the challenges of libertarianism. He's been putting this into a book form. So it might be a good book for you to pick up for yourself. It might be a good book for you to pass off to one of your friends who still loves and adores the state. It's a good opportunity here. Head on over to theroyalgreen.com and support my man Jack Casey. And last but not least, the Nug of Knowledge. That's right, I am wearing the Taxation is Theft from Mr. Daniel Berman. If you head over to Nug of Knowledge, you can get yourself a couple nugs and gain a little bit of knowledge by using the code Bearded Truth. You'll be able to get 10% off, be able to get some love, get some happiness, get some nugs, and of course, get some of that knowledge. But without further ado, let's go ahead before he gets too bored, falls asleep on me. It's been known to happen. It's fine. Let's bring on Mr. Travis Bull himself. How's it going today, sir? Rubbing the sleep out. I see you. Oh, it's good. It's good. It's a beautiful Friday. I'm excited having the new time slot here. So I'm glad that you were able to work within your schedule. I know you guys are, we were talking in the pre-show, you've been struggling with the snow, and I'm sitting here in shorts, so I gotta say I gotta be doing a little bit better than you maybe in that circumstance. But oh, I have you muted. That's fantastic. So, but nonetheless, now that we've got that fixed, um, so you've got some snow up there in Alaska, or not Alaska, up there in Minnesota. It's about as cold. When does, first question, when does the snow go away for you guys?
Well, we've actually been in the 40s for the last week and a half, so I've got some areas of my yard that's down to about 3 feet.
Down to 3 feet. I want you guys to
Yeah.
down to 3 feet. No, no, no.
Now, granted, it is completely gone in a lot of areas, and my problem is I am in the middle of farmland all the way around me. I am the only windbreak. So no matter which direction the wind's coming from, it's blowing the snow off all these fields and dropping it off in my yard.
Mm, mm.
I'd like to get a dump truck and start returning it right about now.
That's a struggle. That oh, see, this is why, like, people who know me, I used to live in Alaska, and thankfully we never got that much snow. I lived up far enough north where it was just frigid. It was too cold to snow in many circumstances. So that was just not tolerable. Then I moved up to Connecticut where we got plenty of snow there. And it was like, no, that's not tolerable either. So now I'm down south and it's like, I don't need to retire. Just get me the hell out of here. From comments from the comment section, I have never seen snow from Meg Jones. That's, you're better off, Meg. Don't wish for any changes there. But today's
I tell you what, when you have livestock, it's a whole different challenge when you have livestock in snow.
I believe it, because you got to worry about, like, you ain't got to worry about just yourself staying warm, but I'm sure there's a lot of different precautions you have to take, water, food, and everything else, and keeping them warm.
Well, a lot of it's doing smart genetics.
Okay.
I mean, you get livestock or whatever that's bred for this kind of weather. Our cattle are belted Galloways, called Oreo cows. They got a white stripe right down the middle of them. But they're basically a Scottish Highland breed. So they're more equipped for this type of weather. During the winter, they get a second coat. So it's not a matter of even having to add a bunch of fat to them because they'll grow out their own hair for it.
Oh, that's cool.
So a lot of that stuff. And there's some days where I'm out there and I'm all cuddled up or sheltered up from the wind and everything else, and they're out there like nothing's going on.
That's amazing. So before we dive into today's conversation, where we're going to be talking a little more about your livestock farm, who are you? Where are you from? Go ahead and plug yourself. I wanna learn a little bit about you.
Okay, my name's Travis Bull Johnson. I am currently living in Minnesota, but I'm originally a Southern boy. I'm originally from Louisiana. About far south in Louisiana as you can go without getting your feet wet. So, but when I retired from the Army in 2018, my wife, who's from here's parents said, "I tell y'all what, if y'all retire to here, we're gonna go ahead and give you your share of the inheritance, 40 acres to retire onto."
That's not bad.
And I'll be honest, there's some time in the middle of the winter I start to wonder if it was worth it or not. When it's -25 or -30 and I've got to go out there to get livestock taken care of, or there's a blizzard and I need to find some way to get over to our farm property, which is 10 miles away from our house, to check on everybody. There's some days I'm wondering what the hell I was thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we're up here and we're running for Congress. Our Facebook is Bull Johnson for Congress. We're on YouTube, Travis Bull Johnson. Our website is bulljohnsonforcongress.us. Don't do what Matt did to me last time when I was on his show and say it was .com.
It's .us. Matt.
.us.
Matt.
I like to call him out when I can. But yeah, I mean, we're coming out here and we're trying to make soda. Currently, there's only two candidates, me and the incumbent. At one point, we had 3 Democrats, but 2 of them were taken out with redistricting.
Okay.
The last one got so sick and tired of the Democratic Party, he said, "Screw y'all, I'm running as an independent." And then last week, he announced that he was withdrawing from the race to volunteer with the Ukrainian Defense Forces.
Wow. Wow.
So he has left the race, and we're in talks now. And he will actually, if I get when I get elected, he will actually probably come and work for me after he gets back, because I'd like to have that. He's more center left,
Yeah.
but I like to have that difference in opinions within my
Yeah.
people
A
working.
good challenging stick. Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I mean, there's some things I don't think about. Okay, and it's sometimes good to have that perspective. So they may change my mind, maybe not. But that's one of the things we were trying to press with this campaign is we're here to represent everybody, not just one segment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where everybody's frustration is they feel if the other party wins, they don't have a voice anymore.
Yeah.
I
No, and
mean, we need
that's
to make sure everybody still has a voice.
that's so true, because I mean, like, when we look at it, and this might be a good segue point of, um, when we look at the economy overall, we see where Congress at the state level and at the federal level, um, where they are serving to one specific business enterprise market, portions of the market, and it's usually the bigger people, where in the small guys, we're all left behind, we're all left alone. And so, um it's so incredibly important that we highlight this, that when you want to serve everyone, it means that you free everyone, when you liberate everyone. And so when we look at the markets, how can we free people, how can we liberate them? And of course, this all starts with having to understand enough of the market and enough of the barriers in place to know how people are being limited. So we spoke a little bit about, well, we hinted at the idea that you have a livestock farm. And so with you having a livestock farm, what are your intentions with it? Because I'm assuming that this is a little bit of a business. How did it come about? Did you have to get a lot of permissions? Walk me through that process, if you will.
Well, when I got out, we decided this is what we wanted to do with my retirement. I mean, we wanted to get out. We wanted to go more towards a self-sufficient lifestyle. Well, self-sufficient lifestyle means being able to provide for the stuff that we can't trade or barter for. I mean, like internet, like car payments, like insurance. Okay, these are things that we need money for. So we decided, hey, we're going to do this small farm. My first real issue with government regulations was the issue with the zoning office.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to build a barn, or excuse me, a hay shelter, and it's Minnesota. We get all this snow. I wanted it fairly close to the road so I can get to it and get out with minimal of moving of snow and so forth.
Yeah.
They came back and said, well, no, you can't build anything within 150 feet of the road. I'm like, huh? Excuse me? Well, that's what the set aside and right of way is for that road is 150 feet from the middle of the road. I'm like, that's BS. What do you need 150 feet for? So I went to the county commission, because it was a county that did it. And I'm sitting here saying, okay, if y'all can give me one good reason why you need 150 feet, you know what? I'll go back and be on my merry way.
Yeah.
Well, of course, they couldn't do it.
No.
And for half an hour, I'm here. I'm waiting. Give me give me a reason. And finally, the vice chair came back and said, well, we may want to make that road into a 4-lane one day. It's a freaking dirt road. It's a gravel road. Okay. So that's when I'm like, okay, you know what? This is crazy. And I started
That
voicing
that really
my
raises
frustration.
this really raises a concern for me, that this is a road, and sure, it's a public road or whatever else, but they go, well, it may be a dirt road right now, and it may be enough for 1.5 vehicles to pass it, maybe two, but we actually own your property, and so you don't get to use 150 feet of your property in order to do what you want to do. That right there just shows. I digress.
I mean, look at this way. My property is about 1,100 feet long along that road.
Mm-hmm.
Take 1,100 feet times 150 feet, and I'm losing acres
Yeah.
of usable space that I can't put buildings on. and it is, for a lot of it, it's not a big deal. For pastures, whatever, okay, you know what, I can still do pastures all the way up to the road because they can be moved easily. But when it comes down to my barn or my hay shed, so I have easy access during a Minnesota winter, I mean, that's an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get to my barn now after a snowstorm, I got to go out there and get the skid loader out to clear my way to be able to get in to be able to get in and out of my barn. I mean,
And they couldn't.
and I when I voice these concerns online and different websites or Facebook groups I'm part of, I've slowly learned that my county is probably one of the worst in the area. I mean, there's all kind of businesses who do not do business or set up in Polk County because the other counties surrounding us have less regulations.
Mm. So,
I mean,
by that anecdote, less regulations means more business. Crazy idea.
Yep.
So beyond just having this arbitrary 150 feet, what other hurdles have you kind of encountered as you were building up your livestock?
okay, so give you an example on my barn, and this is a livestock barn.
Mm-hmm.
When I tried to get electricity run to it, well, guess what? You need to meet all these electric codes. So just to put electric in my barn, which is we only put lights in a few outlets, was over $5,000 because that's what it cost them to meet code and to get inspectors out there. Okay, and so we're not talking about, I mean, running lines in a house or whatever. I mean, we're talking just inside a barn, wires running along the wall. So I mean, so yeah, those kind of things are frustrating.
You could
But
have
one of the
almost
worst.
you could have almost ran a long enough extension cord, just ran it from your house, and they would like.
I'm not gonna say I haven't done that because I don't know who may be watching. Okay, but there are still some areas in my area that yes, that is.
Yeah, but it shows like the stupidity of some of these controls that they have in place, where it's like you have easy workarounds, just a matter of having the means of getting those, which that speaks to another thing of these hurdles, right? These hurdles are put in place to where people who can't afford to, this is a smaller example, of course, because we're talking about just a simple extension cord, running some PVC pipe underneath the ground and running it to and from. But with small businesses, when you have these hurdles put in place where it's like, this is not overcomable as a small business, the big businesses go, I can work around this. I can draw up a quick line and we'll be good.
Well, the biggest example of that we face is USDA inspections. So I've got cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you come up to me and say, "Hey, Bo, I want to buy 20 pounds of hamburger," I have to look at you and say, "I can't do it." I can tell you an eighth of a cow that you have to buy live, or a quarter of a cow, or half a cow that you have to buy live, but I can't sell you the end product because we're not getting it through USDA inspected. But you can buy a portion of the cow, we'll bring it to the butcher for you, and you pay the processing, and then you can pick up your meat because I'm not selling you meat, I'm selling you a live animal. That's the way we have to sell it. Now, for if I go through a USDA inspected butcher shop,
Mm-hmm.
well, guess what? Now I could sell it that way. But for that USDA butcher shop to function, they need to pay an inspector to be there at all times when they're open. The inspector does nothing but sit down and look at meat on occasion. He is not providing anything to improve that business. So what happens is most butcher shops say, no, we're not going to go through that bullshit for getting USDA inspected. It's not in our best interest because we're basically paying an employee
With no value gained. Yeah.
who's not adding anything. I mean, since all these places shut down last year, I mean, it's an 8 to 12 months wait to get into a butcher shop to begin with. So, but when you take an inspector, and the excuse for this is, and I've talked to Congress people about trying to change this, they're like, well, the inspector needs to be there for safety.
Safety.
At which point I say bullshit, because you look at a big packing plant, they have these assembly lines that this meat goes by each inspector. They've got less than 2 seconds to look at that carcass before it's past them.
Yeah.
I trust my butcher, who's going to be looking at that thing for a couple hours, to find any imperfections, a lot more than I trust that USDA inspector sitting on a processing line for these major packing plants. Because when that meat leaves my butcher, it's got my name on it and it's got their name on it. They're not going to let anything out that door that's questionable.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's not a safety issue.
No, it's
I mean,
not. It's they know that they can get their cut of this, and they got bought out. I mean, when it comes to the food industry, right? A lot of people talk about how it's good to have inspectors come through your restaurants and everything else, because we want to know, right? You of course want to know if they've got cockroaches. You want to know if what you're eating is what they say that they're eating. And as that libertarian, I say I would much rather not prevent a small business from starting up, allow them to open up. They have to take care of themselves, but then have free market inspectors where it's like you go and pay for it. Now you've got a shiny badge that you could throw up on your door and say, look, not only is my food good, but it's also been inspected. Like, I want to go for a business that's willing to take that extra step, but I don't want to stop a small business from being able to get in there. And kind of like what you're saying, the butchers don't want to go through that USDA process because it's so expensive. All of that labor, all of that money going towards that labor that creates no value.
Well,
and
that's not only that, but then there's certain physical requirements they need to do. That inspector needs to have his own office. You have to have a specific angle for your drain pipes. You have to have, I mean, the listing of requirements is crazy.
I would order him a porta john. There's your office, yeah. And there's the worth of your job.
Yeah, but so it adds so much to it. And my whole thing is this is about freedom to purchase what you want, where you want, how you want. If you know that you're buying meat from me, but it's not inspected by the government, you should have that right to make that decision, whether you know me, you know the conditions of my animals. If you want to make that call and say, you know what, I don't care if it's inspected or not because I trust you, I know it's coming from you, that should be your right.
Yeah.
Okay, that should be your option. Because guess what? If I'm giving you a shitty product, I'm not going to be in business long.
Exactly.
Problem's going to take care of itself.
Especially in the world of the 21st century right now, where everybody's got their phones. Where you guys can get your Muddy Water Media phone case on muddywatersmedia.com/store. But everyone's got their phones, and we've all got Facebook, we've all got Twitter, we've all got Instagram, we've all got these things where your puny little individual voice can be magnified, can be just explode out there. And as soon as you say, look, you know, Jason's got this restaurant and I ate 6 cockroaches in my one taco, like, I'm going out of business immediately. Yeah. So it's in my best interest as a business owner to go, I'm gonna fucking take care of my customers.
Yeah, or it puts you in a situation where you have to go ahead and hire that inspector so you can prove that, you know what, we've had issues, we've addressed them, we've fixed them.
Yeah, because yes, people are going to make mistakes, and solutions are there, and so that's. Yes, you're screaming what I'm screaming here.
Now, what's really so as a farmer, as a small animal farmer, it limits my markets. Okay, so I cannot. I mean, there's 4 major processors that cover, I think, 80 or 90% of the country's processing ability. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. Now, with COVID that kicked in, what is the price of your meat done in the grocery store?
I think it's gone up.
It's skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Here's another secret. The amount a rancher is getting for his head of cattle has not.
So who's the middleman?
The packers.
Okay.
They're controlling supply and demand. Because, of course, when one of these places have to shut down for a few months, well, guess what? I mean, we don't have any other option where else to bring it because there's very limited major processors.
Yeah.
So when they shut down, it has a huge effect on supply and demand, which is the excuse they used for raising the prices. But here's another secret for you. Our exports didn't go down. There was not an actual shortage. They've got 90 to 120 days worth of meat that's already been butchered on stock.
Huh.
but again, there's only a few companies working in conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
How are you as a customer going to have the option of going, hey, I can go somewhere else where it's cheaper? Well, you can't, because it's not the grocery store's fault. They are having to pass on to you what the packers pass on to them. And since the packers are the only game in town, and we don't have access again to local butcher shops that could sell cuts, there's no incentive for the packers to keep their prices down.
Yeah.
There is no competition.
Exactly. Without that competition, there's no reason to push prices down.
Right, and the government is limiting the competition. It's frustrating for me because Massey, Representative Massey, has been trying to push something through called the Prime Act for years.
Yeah.
What the Prime Act would do is it would allow you to buy cuts from a custom butcher with the understanding that it's fully disclosed, that it's not a USDA inspected butcher. It's your choice, your call. There are still some, and what it does is it takes USDA out, it puts the pressure back on the states.
And that's
it's the state's responsibility to approve it and come up with any required standards, not the federal government with a one size fits all.
This all speaks to the idea, and we've seen this in so many of the different markets, right? The right to try movement of, medication doesn't have to be approved through the FDA for you to be able to try it, right? If this is the correct answer, because it puts the responsibility not on the government but on you yourself. You're responsible for your own life. And if you've done your research, or if you haven't done your research and you just think this is a better way of doing it, it's your life on the line. You have to take those risks. And same thing for the butcher. When we talk about hairstylists and the burdensome regulations and controls that are there, just to cut people's hair, you have hundreds of hours in some states of training required to do this. If you want to go to somebody who didn't go to hundreds of hours of training, I don't care enough about your hair to stop you. I don't.
You gotta live with the results. Not me.
You get the bowl cut, it's fine. Enjoy your bowl cut. Mama didn't have it when she was cutting it for you in the kitchen back when you were a kid. Your barber didn't get the training either. It's fine. You do what you want to do. I'm gonna go see a barber.
Well, look, it's not just on the meat side. I mean, we have here in Minnesota, there's a huge demand for raw milk.
Yeah.
But we can't really sell it. I've got goats, and goat milk is in very high demand. I mean, the fat content the butter fat content is very high. It's great for ice creams, stuff like that. But I cannot sell it for human consumption. I can sell it for animal consumption. Oh, by the way, when I sell it to you for animal consumption, you have to bring your own bottle to fill it up. I can't provide a bottle or anything. You have to come with your own container for me to fill up.
I'm going to set a bunch of containers outside my own building. If you want to pick one of those up and say that you brought it, because these rules are...
Well, and here's what's frustrating about it is every time you open up that milk for air or anything else, you're increasing the possibility of contamination.
Yeah.
So it actually makes it less safe the more that milk is handled. And if you're having to pour it from one container to another, I mean, you're increasing.
The frustrations. It's ridiculous. I hope I didn't lose him for good on this time. No, we're back. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I think it's still my router, so I apologize.
Oh.
It's on the list. It's on the list, I promise. Muddy Waters Media the issues trademarked. It is what it is. But no,
folks, you'll need to subscribe to him so you get more money and get better equipment. Okay, you'll need to help the brother out.
Anchor.fm/muddywaters/subscribe. Yes, but I forgot I've been supposed to be plugging that. But anyways,
everything to help you out, man. Anything to help you out.
Yeah. But no, it is so. It's almost as if we have legislators creating these policies because it was a benefit to one of the one of the union groups, one of the lobbyists, or everything else, where they were able to get a cut from that, rather than actually understanding the market, understanding how things are going to work logistically. And they just put these things in place, and it's just like, yeah, we don't care if there's more contamination because it's being handled in more different directions. We just want to be able to help our own guys out. It's
Well, and it kind of goes on a conversation I've had on my podcast, Independent as Power, a few weeks ago,
yeah,
and that was talking about how the Republicans basically put to bed the Ron Paul revolution and the reasons for it. I mean, you take everything that came up with the Ron Paul revolution, and we thought we had momentum after that, the Ron Paul revolution. It was about smaller government. It was about all these things that are important to us. Well, guess what? None of those things are important to big business who are basically funding our politicians. There is no money to be made in small government. There is no money to be made in no wars. There is no money to be made by canceling the drug war. Okay, that's what's important to the donors who are contributing to the major political parties, which is why the Republican Party just basically said, okay, Ron Paul Republicans, quiet down and go back in the corner because now we're your only option. And it left all these political orphans.
yeah,
It's the best way I have for them is the physical, I mean, and that's why the Mises Caucus is so popular within the Libertarian Party. Is a lot of these Ron Paul Republicans who believe in everything, same things that we believe in for the most part, don't have a home, and we are the closest thing to what they believe in.
yeah.
Which is what frustrates me on when we have so many people wanting to turn our back on these people when we share 90% of the platform agreeing, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's just frustrating because we shoot ourselves in the foot.
We do. And diving into problems of the LP, we could be here for 17 and a half episodes
Forever.
and not repeat a single word. But yeah, no, I mean that idea that there are so many people disenfranchised from the duopoly, so many people disenfranchised from the different parties, and wanting to be able to pull that lever of power with somebody else in order to shrink the size of government. There are a lot of people that are very short-sighted of my way of liberty or no liberty at all. And we see this, across the entire spectrum of libertarianism, where we would rather infight than outfight. We would rather fight amongst ourselves rather than go, hey, look, here's some legislation that we agree across the board is not good. As I've spoken about on criminal justice reform topics, as I've spoken about on certificate in need of healthcare, as we've spoken about education bills, I haven't really found any libertarians to be opposed to this, and plenty of opportunities for us to go out there and put a good message out there to see some change. And they go, no, I'd rather go fight with this left libertarian, or I'd rather go and fight with this Mises caucus, or I'd rather go fight with this audacious caucus, or radical caucus, or this caucus, or that. I'm like, all right, you guys go enjoy yourselves. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna try and do some work. I'm gonna go make a podcast because at least somebody will listen to me.
And tell you what, it's for me who's been on the campaign trail, it's actually been enlightening to me to a certain extent because I live in a district where Donald Trump took 65% of the vote. With redistricting, it probably went up to closer to 70. And these are people, when I go out and talk to them, I talk about the need for criminal justice reform. I talk about the need to get the government out of determining what marriage is. These people agree with me.
Yeah.
They're not having the response back that many people will say, it's a very small percentage who are the religious right, I'll call them. Most of these people are about, hey, we want the ability to make our own choices.
Yeah.
We do not want the nanny state. And you know what? If I don't want the nanny state for this, I understand that means I don't have the nanny state for these other issues that's close and dear to my heart as well.
Yeah.
But it's better to be free than not.
Yeah.
And that's if anything COVID has taught the people, that is it. I mean, that's been the first real restrictions people across the country have had to face together. It's given everybody a taste of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's really interesting to see the way that the the different collectives have been able to function through all of that. A fun anecdote, I still find it kind of funny. Donald Trump, when he was still president, I went to one of his rallies pushing for criminal justice reform action here at the state level in South Carolina. We were also pushing for some federal as a secondary issue. But I was standing out there as there was literally hundreds of people sitting all day long waiting to go in to see Donald Trump. And so we went down, we were having a hell of a time just running around talking about criminal justice reform. And I couldn't believe how many people accused me of being commie, being a socialist, of being very left leaning. And my spiel, the way that I started this was President Trump was the president who signed the First Step Act, which was a good step forward for the criminal justice system. This was looking at reforming the criminal justice system within like the drug laws. This had plenty of people that got out on much lighter sentences than what they would have been, and yet we got screamed down by so many people. It's like, Trump took the first step, now let's see if we can push for the second step. And it was like, you commie, you socialist, I was like, come on now, man. Like, I was just not, come on. But you're right though, is like, when it comes to this, there are many people out there that see it, and the people out there supported Trump because they saw that he was in some aspects was very much for smaller government. Those are the people that we got to talk to. Hey, you agree here? Let's expand that out.
Now, the rally you were just talking about, was that before, during, or after COVID?
It was just before.
That's the difference, is because none of those people were felt the government restrictions really.
Yeah.
It's once they started rolling out and they started seeing how much power the government had over their day-to-day lives, and that's something people, the average Republican voter, never really thought about until COVID. It didn't affect them. The things that affect the people of color, that didn't affect them. But once COVID started hitting and it was an equal opportunity restrictor,
yeah,
now all of a sudden they're starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, this is what liberty and freedom actually is.
Yeah,
now it's affecting us. Now we care.
Yeah, oftentimes, well, so two things that just came to mind. The first one was like, people don't care about what you think or what you say until they know how much you care, which is an important thing when we're marketing. But the second thing is that when we're talking to people, this is almost the reverse of it, but it was always, if you want to sell something to somebody, it's what's in it for me with them. What's in it for me? And it was, well, we're talking about, like, you know, as you said, you know, people of color, that doesn't affect me. I'm a white person. Is government crushing me? That's not happened to me. I'm doing fine. I'm middle class or whatever else. And then, as you said, COVID happened. It was like, wait a minute, this is happening to me. I don't want it. What's in it for me now? Like, where's this freedom? Can we get this freedom back?
And that's what's frustrating me so much about the LP's internal civil war.
Mm-hmm.
Is, God, this is the perfect opportunity for us. It is a target-rich environment for us to convert people. I mean, look, and just in my district, okay, in the district I'm running in, and it's huge, it's 38 counties.
Yeah.
It takes me 5 hours to go from my house to the southernmost tip, another hour and a half to go to the northernmost tip, if that gives you any idea. But there is 3 or 4 counties already who have basically, the Republican Party has basically split. I mean, as on full on coups between liberty loving people and the establishment.
Yeah.
And there is a civil war now that's been created there against the people who are really starting to go, wait a minute, us people on the bottom are losing our liberties while the establishment just wants things to keep on going the way it is.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work for me.
No.
Okay. And
people oftentimes they agree with the idea of change. And that's we've got to encapsulate, is that we are here for change. We're going to see change. We're going to make an appreciable change for each and every one within our communities, within our districts, everything else. Because the establishment, what is the establishment doing? They're pushing the same old status quo. you're going to see the bureaucrats, you're going to see the regulations, we're going to see these controls, and to bring it back to this, you're going to see small businesses be having their doors shuttered for them. You're going to see lower income families be hurt over and over and over again.
You know what the other main concern I hear about from people?
Mm-hmm.
Corporate welfare.
Yes.
Okay, that is what, and you know what that goes right into.
Uh-oh. I lose him by
what
the
we're talking about today.
There we go.
Is the corporate welfare program where they won't allow a, what's that?
Oh,
Where they
no,
won't allow a
it
big
just froze
business
for a second,
fail.
but you're good.
Yeah. I mean, because when that big business fails, that's where small businesses come in to fill that
Yes.
void.
Yes.
But if you don't let the businesses fail, those small businesses never have a chance to grow. And it's all been so much about, we got to protect the economy. We can't let these big businesses fail. You need to let these big businesses fail, because the only person that's really going to hurt on the economy is the small business that could have filled that void.
Yes.
That's why these corporations are so large, is because they are not held responsible for their bad decisions. They make a bad decision, the government's going to bail them out. No big deal.
Yep.
So they can do whatever they want. They can act recklessly to try to make every dollar. They can let their coffers go real low because they're trying to protect their and feed their investors. Because at the end of the day, we're not their customers. The investors are. That's who they care about.
Yes.
But you know what? That's what the corporate welfare program is made to protect them. And and people are waking up to that fact. I mean, a lot of the people on the right don't want to hear the fact that was the main thing driving Donald Trump, is that it was what was best for Donald Trump. I mean, he was very dependable on, you figure out what was best for him. That's the way things were going to, you follow that, you can do well on it. Okay.
You're swearing on the man now.
Okay. I mean, but in fact, the matter is, I mean, and even his supporters right now, a lot of them acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was more important that he was anti-establishment than the fact he was pro-business. But now they're starting to realize, hey, wait a minute, these corporate welfare programs, and that's one of the things the right and the left can agree on, is these corporate welfare programs have to go.
Yeah.
I tell people.
When we look at the COVID relief bills, I mean, people right now are talking about the inflation, and they're blaming it on the little $600 checks that people were receiving. And I was like, that was a percentage of all the COVID relief bills that went to other nations, that went to our own big businesses, that didn't go to small businesses to keep them afloat. It went to big and medium-sized businesses for the most part.
And here's what people don't realize, and I didn't realize it until I went through this one of those COVID bills, is roughly 10 to 15% of those COVID bills go back to the government to administer the programs. So every one of those bills increased the government by 10 to 15% of whatever the total amount of that bill was, because they need to administer the program now that they just created.
There was billions in one of the COVID relief bills. There was billions of dollars being allocated to a museum, or just a couple museums. It's like, that's when we are worried about COVID, and you're gonna say we're gonna save you, have this museum. Like, come on now, and that that's government at its best.
That's the same one that promised a lot of money to these aircraft manufacturers, providing they had lost so much of their workforce. So it actually encouraged them to lay off people, so they qualified for the government money.
Yep.
But they had to show they had lost so much of their workforce, and that because they couldn't support them anymore. And so it encouraged these businesses to fire people to qualify for the money. I mean, and I know what you're talking about, because I mean, that's actually been one of the most popular posts I've ever done on my Facebook page.
Yeah.
This was my first one that got shared. I got shares into the hundreds and likes and stuff into the thousands, which for a new libertarian candidate at that time, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Hey, but I mean, that's when it actually was going to. They're like, what the hell? And that was the money we didn't see, not the $600 check. That was the
crumbs. The crumbs of the loaf of bread that they were handing out.
Yep, and people just don't understand. Oh, we needed that money. Well, that your money, you know what? Yeah, your money hurt the program, but it's not what's killing us.
Yeah.
It's all the corporate welfare money on there that's killing us.
It's the printing of the money press constantly printing out all this money, and right now what we're seeing is small businesses are going to be worse off because we're advocating. If you're looking out there across the media right now, people are pushing for tax or gas relief funding, and it's just like, one of the issues was that we've got way too much spending, so we've got a higher interest paying higher interest payments on the debt that we already have. So if we just stack more on that, that's going to, hurt us. But the Federal Reserve has no plans on slowing printing out all that funds. We're just accelerating this. I'm wondering when Venezuela is going to be here.
Well, and that's one of the things that even with I have a debate with libertarians about. Is because, of course, libertarians, as your hat says, taxation is theft. But as somebody who's running for Congress, I want to see the tax code simplified, but I'm not running on reducing taxes because until we control our spending, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
We just cut taxes out without reducing our spending considerably. Inflation's going to go even higher and make it even worse because they're going to have to keep on printing that money.
Completely agree.
So it's just irresponsible to cut the taxes until we cut our spending. We need to cut the spending now so that we can reduce and get rid of the taxes.
Absolutely. And so for me, like, I use this as a nice springboard for the conversation of, all right, let's cut the spending. We need to cut spending, cut 2% off of everything. 2% off the top, and next year we'll cut off another 2% and just have this go through this way. We'll look at, is the agencies, are these where we're funding these, are these federal constitutional, or is it state level? If it's state level, get the federal government out of it.
Yep.
We're lopping off 60% of the funding right then and there, at least. Now we can actually pay down our debt, and as the debt gets lower, tax rates drop down. I would like to see fair tax and etc.
And one of the things we need to do as libertarians is we need to sell. Yes, we're going to cut spending. We're going to, okay, so let me use an example. Department of Interior.
Yeah.
They've got this huge budget. Well, part of this huge budget is due to managing national forest and the Bureau of Land Management. So if we cut that funding, who does that fall to? Well, guess what? Let's take some of these national forests. Let's turn it back over to the First Americans. Let's do a land back to the Indians. Guess what? Y'all, I mean, now they can manage this. Okay, now the government doesn't have to. So we have to figure out not only, yes, we're going to do this, but how are we going to replace it? Okay, if we're going to get rid of OSHA, guess what? We probably need stronger unions because the unions are going to make sure their workers are safe if the government's not doing it. These kind of talking points people look at us and go, okay, wait a minute. They've actually got ideas on how to do this, not just I'm going to cut spending. What are you going to do if you're going to cut spending? How are you going to? I mean, who's going to do it? How are you going to make this up? And you can't just say blanket policy. Private industry will pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to have specific ideas to at least start the conversations.
Definitely. And that's the thing. Like, that's a good message for a lot of libertarians because so many of us within the ranks and files, we sit there and we have complaints for days, and they're well substantiated claims. And then it's like, all right, what's the solution? It's just like, I'm gonna complain. It's like, oh, you have fun with that. Like, you have to have, like you said, you got to have those solutions in hand and have a couple, right? Have a couple ideas and be like, hey, these are some starter ideas. What do you think? Put it back on the other person. How would you like to see society ran without the government doing it? And it allows for people to be more engaged in that conversation.
Well, and I found that, I mean, people appreciate it. The fact that you're coming with ideas. They may not always agree with the idea, but there's some ideas I've thrown out there that I thought would be very controversial, like the land back to the natives, to the Native Americans, and found that it's got a lot more. When people start thinking about it, they start going, "That's not a bad freaking idea." Can we make sure we protect people's right to hunt on that land? As long as you can do that, they're all for it.
Yeah.
And these are people who normally you wouldn't expect to be in that camp of saying that was okay. Uh, I mean, the old saying, you keep on doing what, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're always going to get what you always got. And that's where,
I think that's also the definition of insanity.
it is. But that's why people like when you come in with different ideas. You're just like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, it may work, it may not, but we can't keep doing what we're doing now.
Yeah.
What we're doing now is failing. If this idea fails, we're no worse off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, so we've got the potential to, let's go with this potential to improve rather than keep doing what we've always done, because let's face it, it's not working. I mean, our debt is going through the roof. Uh, and our GDP isn't growing as fast as it should be. Why? Because the small businesses who are your actual producers aren't being allowed to thrive.
Well,
And the
thankfully,
corporations are going out of the country to get stuff done.
and thankfully, with the GDP, and I say thankfully very, very sarcastically and ironically, within the GDP is government spending. So as long as they spend more, GDP goes.
Yeah.
it's a fraudulent count or metric, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, and again, the we got to get through these regulations. Again, how do we shrink government? Limit regulations. The less regulations they have, the less programs you have, the less employees that the government needs to run these things. Now the problem is with public sector unions, shrinking government is going to be a beast. That's not the word I was going to use originally, but I mean, because I mean, I was in the Army during the drawdowns of the 90s.
Yeah.
And it didn't really save a lot of money, because all you did was shift employees from one area to another. Now you had to pay the relocation costs. Now you had to pay for new house. I mean, they had an allowance to get them a new house. And I mean, yeah, you shrunk the workforce by a percentage. But all you did, you took that money you saved from shrinking it and you put it towards other compensation.
Yeah.
Why? Because the public unions are so strong. I mean, that's one of those tight ropes I have to walk. I'm a firm supporter of private employee unions. Public unions, not so much. So
yeah.
Why? Because public unions are going to make it harder for me to shrink the government.
Yes, very much so, and we see them all the time. They're the ones.
I mean,
opposing everything.
And you know what? And if they would do a good job of policing their own, instead of just protecting their own, even the bad apples. I mean, that's the problem we have with the police forces. I mean, and I'm lucky. I'm extremely lucky in that I live in small town America, where all the police, all the police, they all know you. They police in their own communities, and we don't have a lot of the issues that the police in the cities have when you have people who are policing areas where they don't live.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky in the fact we just don't have that many of those bad apples here. But the fact is, the ones you do have, like in the cities or wherever else, the unions protect them. They don't allow them to get weeded out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true.
And that's what's frustrating. I mean, that's as you said, we could talk criminal justice for days.
That's one of my favorite topics for sure.
Okay, we can talk for days. But they were supposed to be on businesses.
Yeah. So I wanna give you the last couple thoughts here. Give us your thoughts on wrapping this up from this. What do you kind of recap with what the small businesses are facing, and then feel free to plug yourself again. I want to hear a little bit about your podcast. You just started up a new podcast. Want to hear what that's about and where we can find that as well.
Okay. Best thing we can do with small business is we got to, if we're going to have regulations, they need to be no shit requirements. Okay. This is something that's actually in the cut that's needed. Get rid of all this extra BS. Get rid of everything that's restricting small businesses from thriving. We got to do something about this top up corporation philosophy. I mean, these huge corporations are limiting the ability to compete. Perfect example is when you take a packer. Yeah, they're all for, yes, we want USDA inspectors. Why? because they could split up that cost of one inspector with 500 cows, whereas a small butcher needs 5 cows to pay off that same inspector. The price per animal is a huge difference. They can afford it, and at the same time, it allows them to limit competition. I mean, that's why
Absolutely.
they keep pushing this. I mean, they're on one hand, they're like, yeah, we don't want all these inspectors, but on the other hand, they're like, yeah, you need to keep them here because it limits our competition.
Yeah.
I mean, because and for on livestock providers like myself, is when we have very limited options of where we're going to sell how we're going to sell our animals, we don't have any leverage. We can't use supply and demand.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who control it, not us. I mean, the way supply and demand is supposed to work is the suppliers are supposed to have some kind of say, and we don't, because guess what? If we don't sell it to them, oh, we'll just bring it in from Brazil,
Yeah.
which is where JBS is based out of, where they supplement it. Their government supplements it. I mean, that's the other challenge we face over here all the time is foreign governments that supplement industries in their countries, and it causes our government to have to supplement ours to keep everybody on an even playing field. That's something we see in the sugar industry,
Yeah.
because of course, like Cuba and all those countries, they are heavily. That's the only way their people are employed is because the government's supplementing the sugar industry.
Yeah.
So of course they can produce a lot cheaper than we can.
Yeah. Whenever we see those subsidies, they always help out to ensure that more is able to come there. And of course, as we go, hey, we're gonna help you. Guess what? We're not helping ourselves out. But
yeah.
But so we're coming up on 3 o'clock now, and I can't go too far.
Oh yeah, I
over.
like to talk, man. I
No, I
warned you
love
before.
it. I love it. I love it. So
Yeah.
I want to hear about your podcast. What is it about?
Okay.
What do you guys cover? And then of course plug your campaign and everything else you're getting involved with.
So a few weeks ago, we started a podcast called Independent is Power. The thought process behind this was to show, hey, you don't have the strings being pulled by a corporate entity or by a huge party entity. You have the power to represent your constituents, not just do as you're told. So many of our representatives right now are puppets on a string. They have no power. They do what they're told because the big money party money is going to be withheld if you don't.
Yep.
Well, guess what? When you're an independent or you're a libertarian going into this, we don't have any strings. I mean, I tell people this all the time. Well, when we talk about the Libertarian Party, and they're like, well, you're just doing one master for another. You got well, guess what? The Libertarian Party don't make enough money and contribute enough to candidates to have any leverage on us. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. That's one of the.
It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So that's where we focus on. Just go ahead. You went off for a second.
Oh, that's like one of the perks and the downfalls of the Libertarian Party. They don't have any levers of power to control you, but they also don't have any levers of power to help you.
Help you, exactly. So we started that a few weeks ago, and a lot of it's focused off of our campaign. For those of you who don't know, I've made the decision to run as a independent libertarian rather than a libertarian nominated candidate. And I tell people all the time, hey, what's more libertarian than a libertarian running without asking for permission from the party? Okay. And part of the reason for that is just the fact that I need this election to be about me, not the Libertarian Party. I need people to look at me and go, "This is our candidate. I want to be a candidate first in the eye of the population."
Yeah.
Because guess what? We don't have enough of a base for that libertarian ticket to get me a whole lot of help. What I found is when people don't go into that preconceived notion and you start hitting them with libertarian ideas, they start going, that's a good idea.
Yeah. They start accepting it a
And
little more.
with points, we spring it on them. Yeah, libertarians have been saying this for years. So that's our podcast. You can find our podcast off of our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. YouTube's channel is Travis Bull Johnson.
Okay.
Our Facebook page is and I'll probably going to screw it up here, so I'm going to double check it because Travis Bull Johnson for Congress. And our website is bulljohnsonforcongress.us.
Matt, right? It's US.
Yeah. Guys, if y'all can help support our campaign, I'd appreciate it. We have a great opportunity. We've made a deal with Koala Media, who's going to be doing our commercials for our campaign.
That's
They've
awesome.
agreed to do it for between $3,000 and $3,500. And give you an example, Mark Lindquist, who was running, he's the one who just dropped out, paid $18,500 for theirs.
So you're gonna steal the deal and such an opportunity up there. It's
well, and the thing is, to do that though, I need to come up with another $1,000 by the end of the month, so I can make our 50% deposit before we start, because we're planning on starting to film these things the first part of April.
all
So
right.
any help on that to get us to that number is greatly appreciated. If we're going to make a difference, I need help. I mean, the benefit of this race right now is the Democrats are not going to put any money in it.
Yeah.
The Republicans consider this a safe seat. They're not throwing a lot of money into this. They're going to be putting all their money into battleground areas.
Yep.
And they're going to look at it and say, to the incumbent and say, hey, if you can't beat an independent libertarian, you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, our money will make a big difference.
It will. It absolutely will.
The big dollars don't give the advantage to the incumbents as much anymore. Where do they spend it? They spend a huge amount of money on TV ads. Who watches TV anymore?
Yeah, no, it's definitely dying out, especially
it's all streaming. So it's kind of an equalizer for us. The fact that I can spend my money and advertise a lot better on YouTube or Facebook, a lot more people for less money.
Yep.
Than TV, and it kind of and these big campaigns don't really know, with the exception of AOC and some of those people, how to utilize social media.
Yeah, they definitely have to catch up with the 21st century in a lot of ways. But I got
one last plug.
Yeah,
if anybody's interested in helping me out as a social media manager, going back on that last topic, that would be very much appreciated. Reach out to me.
Absolutely.
We're looking for that. Some volunteer coordinators. Anybody who's willing to help, please reach out to me.
All right. Well, I appreciate it so much, Travis, for you taking the time out your day and hopping in here today to talk about. I mean, we went all over the place, but we started with small business. We got into party politics. We got into great conversation today, and could not be.
So you're supposed to be able to steer the conversation, dude.
Hey,
you're the host.
I let things happen, man. I sit back and let it go. So it was a great conversation. I appreciate you so much for hopping on here, and thank you guys in the audience for tuning in, checking us out, and appreciate it so much. And looking forward to having you coming back on.
Thank you very much for having me, and I appreciate it. And one thing I like to tell all these people who are having me on their podcasts and stuff like that is, next year you're going to be able to have me on here as a congressional member, because I remember who got me where.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
man.
Sir.
And we'll talk soon.
Have a good one.
All right.
All right.
Oh, I got the right screen this time. Oh. Hey guys, so thank you guys so much for tuning in again. We've got a wonderful week coming up. If you guys have not seen the new schedule, Tuesdays are still going to be Matt and Spike, Muddy Waters of Freedom. Wednesday will be Spike running My Fellow Americans. Thursdays with Writer's Block with Matt Wright. And of course, Friday with me with the new slot, 2 p.m. Eastern. You're here with Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. If you guys have not gotten enough of me, you guys can tune in tonight. I'll be on Cajun Libertarian at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. He's on Facebook, YouTube, and a bunch of other places. So you guys find him, tune into him there. But with that being said, I hope you guys all had an amazing week. Hopefully you guys aren't stuck in the snow like Travis is. But we will talk soon. And I love you all. Appreciate y'all. Have a great week. And see you guys next